Single rancher found two Apache sisters freezing in the snow. Now they both want to be his wives. John Miller had been living on his ranch for nearly 20 years. He was a man of routine, waking up before sunrise to check on his cattle and ensure everything on the land was in order. The winter that year had been especially harsh. Snow covered the rolling hills, and the wind cut through the thin layers of his coat, making the morning chores more difficult than usual. He was used to hard work, and the solitude of ranch life did not bother him. In fact, he enjoyed it. It gave him time to think and a sense of freedom that city life never offered. That morning, as John made his rounds, he noticed something unusual. Near the edge of the eastern fence line, partially hidden behind a cluster of snow-covered bushes, there were two small shapes struggling against the wind. At first, he thought they were animals caught in the snow. But as he got closer, he realized they were people, two young women, shivering and clearly exhausted. John's heart raced. He dropped the reins of his horse and ran toward them, calling out to see if they were all right. The cold had turned their lips blue, and their clothes were wet and frozen. They were barely able to stand, and each step seemed to take all their strength. He could see the fear in their eyes as they tried to maintain their balance in the snow. Without hesitation, John wrapped his heavy coat around the nearest girl and helped both of them to his horse. He spoke in a calm, gentle voice. "You're safe now. Don't worry. I'll get you inside." The girls nodded weakly, unable to speak. One of them clung to him tightly, trembling as if the warmth of his coat was the only thing keeping her alive. John led them back to his cabin, a sturdy wooden house that had sheltered him through many winters. He lit the fireplace and laid out thick blankets on the floor. He guided the girls to sit down and handed them cups of warm water. When they were steady enough, he offered them hot soup. Their hands shook as they held the bowls, but they drank eagerly, the warmth slowly returning to their bodies. Once they were somewhat settled, John gently asked their names. The older one, with long dark hair that clung to her face from the snow, whispered, "Maya." The younger one, her eyes wide and fearful, said, "Leela." John nodded, smiling softly. "Don't worry, Maya and Leela, you're safe here. You can rest now." They had been through a difficult time and were not used to strangers showing care. Their faces relaxed slightly, but the fear in their eyes remained. They stayed close together, as if holding on to each other was the only way to survive. John realized they must have been outside for a long time, exposed to the cold and the wind. Their hands and feet were red and numb. He carefully removed their wet clothing and replaced it with dry, warm garments he had in his cabin. The sisters allowed him to help without protest. It was clear that they trusted him, even if only slightly, and John felt a sense of responsibility he had not expected. After the girls were warmed up, John sat by the fire and talked to them gently. He asked where they came from and why they were out in the snow. At first, they were hesitant to answer. Their voices were soft, almost whispers, and they avoided eye contact. Slowly, Maya began to speak, telling John that they had run away from a nearby town. They had faced difficult situations there and felt unsafe. Leela added that they had no family to turn to and no place to go. John listened carefully, nodding as they spoke. He did not interrupt or judge. He only offered comfort, telling them that they had found a safe place for now. He promised that they could stay at his ranch until they were ready to decide their next steps. Over the next few hours, John helped the sisters dry their hair and wash off the snow and dirt. He brought out extra blankets and made a small area for them to sleep near the fireplace. The warmth of the cabin, combined with the sense of safety, began to relax the sisters. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, they felt like they could breathe. John knew that they would need more than warmth and food. They had been through hardship, and it would take time for them to trust anyone fully. He decided to take things slowly, giving them space while showing that he was reliable and kind. As the day turned to evening, the snow outside continued to fall, covering the ranch in a thick white blanket. John lit more candles and settled in his chair near the fire, keeping an eye on Maya and Leela. He could see them dozing lightly under the blankets. Their breathing had evened out and the tension in their bodies seemed to fade. John felt a quiet sense of relief. He had acted quickly when he saw them, and now they were safe and cared for. In the following days, John continued to check on them carefully. He made sure they had enough to eat and encouraged them to rest. He introduced small tasks to help them regain their confidence, like gathering firewood or feeding the chickens. At first, they were hesitant, but gradually they began to participate. The sisters learned quickly, and their faces often lit up with pride when they accomplished a task. During this time, John began to notice their personalities. Maya was thoughtful and calm, often observing quietly before speaking. Leela was curious and lively, asking questions about everything on the ranch. John found himself enjoying their company. Even though he had spent years alone, he realized that he liked having people around. Their presence brought warmth to the cabin, beyond the fire itself. The sisters also began to notice John's care. They saw that he was not only strong and capable but also patient and gentle. He never pressured them, never asked for anything in return, and always treated them with respect. For Maya and Leela, who had faced hardship and distrust, this was a new experience. Slowly, they began to let their guard down, smiling and laughing more often as they felt safe. One evening, as the three sat by the fire, John asked the sisters about their dreams and hopes. Maya spoke softly about wanting a life where she could feel safe and valued. Leela, more energetic, mentioned wanting to learn everything about ranch life and perhaps one day help others in need. John listened carefully, realizing that these sisters were not only survivors but also strong, intelligent, and hopeful. As the first week passed, the bond between them grew. John provided shelter and guidance, while the sisters brought life and energy into his quiet home. They began to feel like a family, even though they had only known each other for a short time. John could see the strength in them, and the sisters could see the kindness in him. One night, as snow fell quietly outside, John looked at Maya and Leela sleeping near the fire. He thought about how quickly life could change. One moment, he had been alone on his ranch, and the next, two strangers had walked into his life and brought warmth to his home. He realized that helping them had also changed him, giving him a sense of purpose he had not felt in years. Although the future was uncertain, John felt hopeful. He knew that the sisters were safe for now, and he would continue to protect and guide them. He also understood that their journey was just beginning, and he wanted to be there to help them every step of the way. The story of that winter day, the day John found two sisters freezing in the snow, would remain in his memory forever. It was a day when courage, kindness, and humanity came together. For Maya and Leela, it was the beginning of a new life. For John, it was the start of an unexpected bond that would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. And so, life on the ranch continued, with the snow covering the fields and the fire burning bright in the cabin. Outside, the world was cold and harsh, but inside, warmth, care, and hope had found a home. The days after Maya and Leela arrived at John's ranch passed slowly but peacefully. The snow outside continued to fall, blanketing the hills and fences in white, but inside the cabin, warmth and comfort surrounded them. John was careful not to rush the sisters, allowing them to rest and recover fully from the cold and exhaustion. At the same time, he wanted to help them regain confidence in the world, showing them that life could be kind. Maya and Leela were still cautious. Though they felt safe, their eyes often searched the room for danger. They had spent too long living in fear, and it would take time to trust fully. John understood this. He never forced them to talk or participate in chores. Instead, he spoke gently to them, shared small stories about his own life, and showed them how the ranch functioned. "See these chickens," John said one morning as he led them to the small coop. "They depend on us for food and water. We care for them, and in return they give us eggs. People are the same way, just a little more complicated." He showed them how to check on the animals, how to notice if one was sick or in pain, and how to care for the young calves. Maya was quiet, observing and asking careful questions, while Leela jumped right in, helping feed the animals and laughing whenever one tried to sneak the hay from her hands. Over time, the sisters became more confident. Their laughter began to echo through the barn and the fields, mixing with the sounds of the animals and the wind outside. John enjoyed watching them grow more comfortable. It was a joy he had not felt in years. His life had been quiet and solitary, but now the ranch seemed to hum with energy. One evening, after a long day of chores, the three sat by the fire in the cabin. The flames cast a warm glow across the room, and the cold wind outside made the fire seem even more comforting. John handed the sisters mugs of hot chocolate. Maya accepted hers slowly, savoring the warmth, while Leela drank hers quickly, her eyes sparkling with energy. "You're getting stronger every day," John said kindly. "I'm proud of both of you. The cold can't touch you inside this house." Maya and Leela learned quickly, often surprising John with their cleverness and determination. As the sisters grew stronger, their personalities became more visible. Maya was quiet, thoughtful, and careful in everything she did. She often helped Leela stay calm when the younger sister became too excited or impatient. Leela, on the other hand, was lively and adventurous, always curious about new tasks and eager to learn everything as quickly as possible. Together, they balanced each other, and John admired the way they supported one another. One afternoon, while repairing a broken fence in the cold wind, John noticed the sisters working together seamlessly. Maya held the board steady while Leela hammered them into place. John stood nearby, smiling at the sight. It was a simple moment, but it showed him how far they had come since the day he found them in the snow. That evening, they all gathered inside the cabin. John prepared a warm meal and the sisters helped set the table. After dinner, they sat together, sharing stories. John told them about his childhood, about growing up on the ranch and learning to work with the land. Maya and Leela shared small memories from their past, though they avoided the painful parts. "I used to dream about living somewhere safe," Maya said quietly. "Somewhere people didn't hurt each other." "You have a place where you can be safe and happy. You just have to give yourself time to believe it." He noticed small gestures of affection, Maya offering to bring him a warm blanket after a long day, Leela bringing him a fresh cup of coffee in the morning. John realized that he had begun to care for them deeply, not just as someone he was helping, but as people he wanted to see happy and safe every day. The sisters also noticed John's kindness and patience. They began to trust him fully, sharing their thoughts, dreams, and fears. Maya spoke about wanting to help others who were in trouble, just as John had helped them. Leela talked about exploring the ranch, learning every skill she could, and perhaps even teaching others in the future. One cold morning, John took the sisters to the hill behind the ranch to enjoy the sunrise. The snow sparkled like tiny diamonds, and the sky was painted in shades of pink and gold. Maya and Leela stood quietly, holding each other's hands, taking in the beauty. "Isn't it beautiful?" John said softly. Maya nodded. "It is. I never thought I would see something like this and feel safe. It feels like a new beginning." The sisters learned not only about ranch life, but also about friendship, trust, and hope. John discovered that helping them had brought joy and purpose into his own life. They had become part of each other's worlds, and together, they created a small, safe space in a harsh and cold world. As part 2 came to a close, John, Maya, and Leela sat together by the fire, wrapped in blankets, sharing stories and quietly enjoying each other's company. The ranch outside was silent, the snow covering every corner, but inside there was life, warmth, and the beginning of a new chapter. For Maya and Leela, the ranch was no longer just a place to hide, it was a home. For John, the sisters had brought new purpose and meaning to his life. In those moments, none of them could imagine the future completely, but one thing was certain: they had found each other. And in a world that had been cold and harsh, they had discovered warmth, care, and trust, the foundation for the story that was still unfolding. Winter was beginning to fade, and the first signs of spring appeared on John's ranch. The snow was melting slowly, revealing patches of green grass and small buds on the trees. John, Maya, and Leela were spending more time outside, tending to the animals and preparing the land for the new season. Life on the ranch had grown into a comfortable rhythm, and the bond between them had deepened in ways that were quiet but powerful. Maya and Leela had grown stronger and more confident. They moved around the ranch with purpose, helping John with chores and learning skills that he had thought would take years to teach. Maya, careful and precise, often took charge of organizing tasks, making sure nothing was forgotten. Leela, curious and energetic, approached every task with excitement and a sense of adventure. John watched them work together, amazed at how well they complemented each other. One morning, as the sun rose and painted the sky with shades of gold and pink, John took the sisters to check on a new calf that had been born during the night. The little animal wobbled unsteadily on its legs, and Leela immediately knelt down to help it. "Careful," John said gently. "It's learning to stand, just like you two had to learn everything here." As the day went on, John found himself thinking about the sisters in a way he had not expected. He cared deeply for their safety and happiness, but he also admired them for who they were. Maya's quiet strength and thoughtful nature drew him in, while Leela's energy and curiosity brought a joy that he had not felt in years. For the first time in a long while, John realized that he was not just responsible for them. He genuinely enjoyed their company and wanted to see them happy every day. That evening, after the chores were done, they sat together by the fire in the cabin. The warmth of the flames filled the room, and the smell of cooked food lingered in the air. John handed the sisters mugs of tea, and they sipped quietly, enjoying the comfort of the moment. "You've grown so much these past few weeks," John said softly. "I'm proud of both of you. I never thought I'd enjoy working so much, but it's fun when you have someone to guide you." Leela would find little ways to make him smile, offering small gifts she had found on the ranch or trying to make him laugh with silly jokes. The sisters' presence brought warmth and light into his life, and he found himself looking forward to their company more than ever. One afternoon, a heavy rainstorm swept across the ranch. John, Maya, and Leela worked together to ensure the animals were safe and dry. They secured the barns and carried extra hay to the livestock. Despite the rain and the cold, the sisters laughed as they worked, turning the hard task into a shared adventure. John watched them and felt a deep sense of pride. They were resilient, capable, and unafraid to face challenges together. After the storm passed, the three of them sat on the porch, wrapped in blankets, watching the sun break through the clouds. The world outside was wet and muddy, but inside they felt warmth and contentment. John poured hot cocoa into mugs and handed one to each of the sisters. "See," he said, smiling. "Even after a storm, there's beauty." I never knew life could feel so peaceful. He did not know how to express his feelings without frightening them or changing the delicate balance of their lives. Despite his hesitation, John found small ways to show his care. He would leave warm blankets for them in the mornings, cook their favorite meals, or take extra time to teach them new skills. The sisters noticed and appreciated these gestures. Maya's quiet gratitude and Leela's lively enthusiasm were constant reminders of the trust and affection growing between them. One evening, after a long day of work, the three sat by the fireplace, sharing stories and talking about the future. Maya spoke softly about her hopes and dreams, saying she wanted to help others who were struggling and give them the same safety she had found on the ranch. Leela, full of energy, talked about learning every skill John had to teach and exploring every part of the ranch. John listened quietly, realizing how much they had grown. The sisters were no longer fragile or fearful. They were strong, capable, and full of life. And as he listened, he felt a growing warmth in his heart, a mixture of love, pride, and hope. As spring approached, John, Maya, and Leela began spending more time outdoors. They worked together to repair fences, plant seeds, and care for the animals. The ranch had never felt so alive. Birds returned to the trees, the grass grew greener each day, and the sun warmed the earth after the long winter. The sisters flourished in this environment, and John watched them with a quiet admiration that deepened each day. One afternoon, while fixing a fence near the edge of the property, John noticed Maya helping Leela adjust a heavy post. He saw the gentle way Maya guided her sister, offering support without taking over. Leela looked at her sister and smiled, clearly grateful for the help. John felt a pang of emotion, recognizing the bond between the two sisters and the care they showed each other. It reminded him of the importance of trust in family, and he realized that he had found a new kind of family in them as well. That night, as they sat by the fire, John found himself thinking about the future. The bond between him and the sisters was growing, and it was clear that feelings were developing on all sides. Maya's quiet admiration, Leela's playful affection, and John's deep care were intertwining in ways he had not expected. He knew that the next steps would require honesty, patience, and understanding. The sisters, too, were beginning to feel the emotional connection. They admired John's strength, kindness, and patience. They appreciated his care and guidance, and they found themselves drawn to him in ways that were deeper than simple gratitude. Maya admired his quiet wisdom and gentle nature, while Leela was attracted to his protective and dependable character. Both sisters felt a growing sense of warmth and comfort whenever they were near him. Despite the unspoken feelings, all three were careful not to rush the process. They continued their daily routines, worked together on the ranch, and shared moments of laughter, learning, and quiet reflection. The connection between them grew naturally, grounded in trust, care, and mutual respect. One morning, John woke early to check on the animals and found Maya and Leela already outside, helping feed the livestock. He watched them quietly from a distance, feeling a deep sense of contentment. They were thriving, strong, and capable, and he was proud of how far they had come. The bond between them was evident, and it filled his heart with a warmth that had been missing from his life for years. As the day ended, the three sat together by the fire, enjoying the peace of the evening. They shared stories, dreams, and laughter, creating memories that would last a lifetime. John realized that the moments he had once taken for granted, the simple joys of companionship, trust, and love, were now the most precious things in his life. In those quiet moments, surrounded by warmth and light, John, Maya, and Leela began to understand the depth of their connection. The trust they had built, the care they had shown each other, and the affection that was quietly growing all pointed to a future filled with love, hope, and togetherness. For John, it was the start of an emotional journey he had never anticipated. For Maya and Leela, it was a chance to experience safety, trust, and the beginnings of love in a world that had once been cold and harsh. Together, they were forming a family, one built not only on survival but on care, understanding, and the quiet magic of human connection. Spring had arrived in full, bringing warmer days and longer hours of sunlight. The snow had melted, revealing green fields, blooming flowers, and streams that glistened in the sun. John, Maya, and Leela were busier than ever on the ranch, taking advantage of the good weather to repair fences, plant seeds, and prepare for the animals' needs in the coming months. Life was full of activity, yet peaceful in its rhythm. Despite the beauty and routine of daily life, a quiet tension began to grow. John had noticed how close Maya and Leela were becoming, not only to him but to each other. Their playful arguments, shared laughter, and subtle glances sometimes made him smile, and other times made his heart ache with uncertainty. He cared deeply for both sisters and wanted to protect their happiness, but he also realized that the feelings growing in his heart were more complicated than he had expected. One afternoon, a neighboring rancher stopped by, bringing news from the nearby town. Rumors had started to spread about John sheltering two young women on his property. While the neighbor's intentions were unclear, the gossip created an uncomfortable situation. Maya and Leela had mostly stayed indoors, But the tension outside reminded John that the world was still a dangerous place for them. He could not let anyone threaten their safety. John gathered the sisters near the porch, his face serious. "I need you both to stay close to the house for a few days," he said. "Some people are asking questions, and I don't want anyone to trouble you." "We trust you," she said, her voice firm. "We'll stay where you say." He realized that every decision he made could affect them deeply. Despite the outside tension, life on the ranch continued. The sisters were eager to help with planting and tending the animals, and John worked alongside them, teaching them new skills and showing them how to care for the land. Maya, always thoughtful, helped plan which areas needed attention first, while Leela brought energy and laughter, making even difficult tasks feel lighter. Their partnership was perfect, and John found comfort in watching them work together. However, the growing emotional connection between the three of them became more noticeable. John caught himself noticing the way Maya's hand brushed against his when passing tools, or the way Leela's eyes sparkled when she laughed at his jokes. He felt a deep affection for both, yet he struggled with how to express it. He did not want to hurt either sister, and he feared that showing too much emotion might confuse them. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace after a long day, the conversation shifted to their hopes for the future. Maya spoke first, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "I want to stay here," she said. "I want to help you and learn everything I can, and I want to be part of this family we are building. I want to be here with you, John. I want to be someone you can trust and rely on always." How could he honor both sisters' feelings without causing pain or conflict? The days that followed were filled with small, meaningful moments. John noticed how Maya would often bring him warm food during his breaks or help him repair a fence without being asked. Leela, on the other hand, would find little ways to make him smile, a flower from the field, a funny story about the animals, or simply her presence by his side. Both sisters showed affection in different but equally meaningful ways. One afternoon, while repairing the barn roof, a sudden gust of wind nearly knocked Leela off balance. John rushed to steady her, and Maya called out from below, concern evident in her voice. The moment was brief, but the intensity lingered. John realized how deeply he cared for their well-being, how protective he had become, and how difficult it would be to choose between them if he ever had to. That night, John stayed awake long after the sisters had fallen asleep. He reflected on the past months, how he had found Maya and Leela in the snow, how he had helped them regain their strength and confidence, and how their presence had changed his life. He knew that the bond they shared was extraordinary, and he felt a responsibility to nurture it carefully. But he also knew that the emotional complexity could not be ignored forever. Over the next few days, John tried to spend equal time with both sisters, ensuring that neither felt overlooked or less important. They continued their work on the ranch, learned new skills, and shared quiet moments by the fire. Yet, the unspoken feelings lingered, growing stronger with each passing day. Maya's thoughtful glances, Leela's playful teasing, and John's deep admiration for both created a delicate balance that required patience and care. One morning, while walking through the fields, Maya spoke quietly to John. Do you feel the same way about us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. John looked at her carefully, choosing his words. "I care for both of you deeply," he said. "More than I can describe. I want you to be safe, happy, and part of my life. But I also want to be fair, and I don't want anyone to feel hurt." As the days turned into weeks, the trio faced small challenges together. A broken fence needed urgent repair, a sick calf required attention, and unexpected visitors from the town asked questions about the sisters. Through every challenge, John, Maya, and Leela worked together, relying on each other's strengths and growing closer through their shared experiences. Despite the difficulties, the emotional connection between them continued to grow. Maya admired John's patience and wisdom, while Leela cherished his protective nature and kindness. John, in turn, was drawn to both sisters, personalities Maya's calm strength and Leela's joyful energy. He realized that he did not want to lose either of them, and that the bond they shared was something rare and valuable. One evening, after a long day of hard work, they all sat by the fire, exhausted but content. John looked at the sisters, their faces illuminated by the warm glow, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. "We've faced a lot together," he said softly. "And I hope we can continue to face the future together as well. We want to stay with you, help you, and be part of this family we're building." As part 4 drew to a close, John, Maya, and Leela sat together in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The fire crackled softly, the night was quiet, and the ranch outside seemed peaceful. But inside, the hearts of the three were full of emotion, hope, and a sense of togetherness. They knew that life would not always be easy, but they also knew that they had each other, a bond built on trust, care, and the beginnings of love. In those quiet moments, John realized that the most important thing was not to rush decisions or force feelings. What mattered was the safety, happiness, and trust they had nurtured together. And as he looked at Maya and Leela, he understood that they were all part of something rare, a connection that could grow stronger with time, patience, and mutual respect. Spring had fully arrived on the ranch. The snow was gone, replaced by green grass and wildflowers that swayed gently in the breeze. The sun shone warmly, filling the cabin and fields with light. John, Maya, and Leela had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Their days were busy with work, but each day also brought moments of laughter, learning, and closeness. The ranch had become more than just a place to live. It had become a home for all three of them. John had spent long hours thinking about the feelings he had for Maya and Leela. Both sisters had become essential parts of his life, bringing joy, laughter, and care. He had grown deeply attached to them, and he knew they felt the same. Yet he also understood that he needed to approach the situation carefully. Their happiness, trust, and comfort were more important than anything else. One morning, as they walked together through the fields to check on the animals, John decided it was time to speak openly with the sisters. He wanted honesty, clarity, and understanding among them. "Maya, Leela," he began, his voice calm but serious, "I care for both of you deeply. You have brought light and hope into my life, and I am grateful every day for your presence. I need you to know that my feelings are real, but I also want to make sure we do this in a way that protects our trust and happiness. But we also don't want to cause each other pain." It was rare, and it made him even more determined to protect the family they were creating together. Over the next few days, they talked more openly about their feelings, dreams, and hopes. They discussed how they could live together in harmony, supporting each other and respecting each person's emotions. John emphasized that honesty and communication would be essential for their happiness. Maya and Leela agreed wholeheartedly. They wanted a life together, built on care, respect, and understanding, without jealousy or conflict. As they worked side by side on the ranch, the sense of unity grew stronger. Maya often helped Leela with tasks that required careful attention, while Leela brought energy and enthusiasm to every chore. John worked alongside them, guiding them when needed and appreciating their growing independence. Together, they formed a team, each person contributing in their own way. One afternoon, while planting seeds in the field, Maya and Leela began laughing over a small mistake Leela had made. John watched them and realized how much joy they brought into his life. Their laughter was infectious, and he felt warmth and contentment that he had never known before. For the first time in years, he truly felt at peace. That evening, they gathered in the cabin by the fireplace, sharing stories about the past and dreams for the future. Maya spoke about wanting to help others who had faced difficulties, inspired by the kindness John had shown them. Leela spoke about exploring the ranch fully, learning all the skills she could, and perhaps even helping others who needed a safe place to live. John listened quietly, feeling proud and amazed. They had grown so much. not only physically and emotionally but also in character and strength. They were no longer fragile or fearful. They were confident, capable, and full of life. And in their growth, they had created a bond that was unbreakable with each other and with him. One morning, John decided to take the sisters to the hill behind the ranch to watch the sunrise. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and gold. The gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers and fresh grass. Maya and Leela stood side by side, holding hands as they admired the beauty. John spoke softly. "This is what life is about, finding beauty, safety, and happiness. Together, we can make every day meaningful. We want to be a family with you, helping and supporting each other no matter what comes." And in that moment, he knew that the future, no matter how uncertain, would be full of love and happiness. The days that followed were filled with simple but joyful moments. They repaired fences, planted gardens, and cared for the animals. In the evenings, they shared meals, talked about their dreams, and laughed over small stories and jokes. Each day strengthened the bond between them, and the warmth of their connection grew deeper. One day, while sitting on the porch together, John looked at the sisters and spoke from the heart. "You've both changed my life in ways I cannot describe. I feel lucky to have found you, and I want us to stay together, supporting and caring for each other always. We want to stay together and build a life that is full of love and care for each other." As the weeks passed, the trio worked together to make the ranch a beautiful, thriving place. They planted flowers and vegetables, repaired old fences, and cared for the animals with dedication. They celebrated small achievements, like a healthy calf being born or a fence repaired before the storm, and these moments brought them closer together. One afternoon, Maya and Leela surprised John with a small gift, a handmade wooden sign for the ranch, with their names carved alongside his. John's heart swelled with pride and love. "This is beautiful," he said, hugging them both. "It shows that we are a family, working together, living together, and supporting each other." They would sit by the fire, sharing stories, planning for the future, or simply enjoying each other's company. The challenges of the past, the hardships they had faced, seemed distant compared to the happiness they had created together. John, Maya, and Leela had formed a bond that was rare and precious. One morning, as the sun rose over the hills, John took a moment to look at the sisters. Maya was helping feed the animals, her calm presence steady and reliable. Leela was laughing as she chased a playful calf, full of energy and joy. John realized that their happiness was his happiness. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that they had all found each other. The story of how he had found Maya and Leela in the snow, brought them to safety, and nurtured their trust and love had reached its happiest point. Together, they had created a life full of warmth, care, and mutual respect. They had overcome fear, hardship, and uncertainty to build something beautiful and lasting. As the day ended, John, Maya, and Leela sat together on the porch, watching the sunset. The sky was painted with colors of orange, pink, and purple, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers and fresh earth. They sat quietly, holding hands and sharing smiles, content in the knowledge that they had found a family, a home, and love in each other. In that peaceful moment, John understood that life on the ranch was no longer just about survival or work. It was about care, trust, and love, the simple but powerful truths that had brought them together. Maya and Leela had not only found safety but also a place where they could grow, laugh, and be loved. And John had found companionship, purpose, and joy that he had never imagined. Together, they watched the sun disappear below the horizon, knowing that the days ahead would bring challenges, yes, but also moments of happiness, laughter, and togetherness. They had survived the cold, the fear, and the hardships, and now they faced the future with hope and courage. In the end, John, Maya, and Leela had created a life together that was filled with love, trust, and unity. They were more than just people living on the same ranch. They were a family bound not by tradition alone but by choice, care, and respect. And in a world that could often be harsh and uncertain, they had found warmth, safety, and a home within each other. The ranch thrived. The animals were cared for, and the three of them worked, laughed, and lived together in harmony. Life had brought them together in unexpected ways, and they had embraced it fully. John, Maya, and Leela knew that their journey was just beginning, but they faced it together, as a family united by love, trust, and hope for the future.